Hello everybody, this is Donna from Right Woman Right, and today I have the great privilege of talking to Kim Klein, health coach, and Kim Klein, author, and Kim Klein, feng shui practitioner, and also Kim Klein, Wabi Sabi practitioner, I guess, right? Or expert,
I
or...
incorporate that into my feng shui practice.
Okay.
And actually, it's kind of grown into everything I do, but that was originally why I studied Wabi Sabi, because of the feng shui.
And we'll get into that, but first I want to, I would love for you to let everyone know a little bit about you. I'll put this up on the screen too, but
Okay.
for folks who are interested, kimkleinhealthcoach.com, and your fabulous Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Kim Klein Health Coach.
Right.
Which, I only took a look at today, and I have to admit that I spent almost 30 minutes before this interview looking at your page going, no, really, I should get back to work. But there were a few things, and when we start talking about Wabi Sabi, I want to reference one of the things that you posted recently, because it really touched me.
Oh, good. Good.
So, Kim, well, yeah, tell us, so you've co-authored 3 books and you've written one yourself, right?
Right.
Called Damn the Pusherman.
Yes, Damn the Pusherman. And that is a book about sugar and the health problems associated with sugar. So probably some of you might remember the old Steppenwolf song, Blank Damn the Pusherman.
Right.
So that's where the title came from. Anyway, it's a very small book, and it's actually really factual. I did do a little bit of writing, though, as far as in the intro and stuff, some nonfiction writing. But my first book was written with my writing partner. It's a fiction novel called 9 Degrees North, and it started because he found out I had lived on this island that was very interesting to him, and probably to a lot of people. He'd never heard of it, and it was back in 1969. He was just fascinated, and he has written screenplays. He's done a lot of directing, things like that. So he really was stoked about the subject matter. He's like, you really need to write, because I'd always been a blogger. I've always, like you, Donna, I've done morning pages for a long time. And I always went to, I had a place to write. It was sort of for myself, but it was my morning pages or my blog. I used to use the blogger format, but I didn't publish them out in the world. I just wrote those. But yeah, so that was my first real experience writing a book. It was a lot of fun, and I didn't worry at the time about much. I trusted that I would get a good editor, things like that, and we sort of helped each other. So I would write a chapter, he would write a chapter, we'd read each other's, we'd kind of, make suggestions. We learned early on how to be very, bring up the good stuff first.
Right, right.
But anyway, that's how I started writing. And then as a health coach, that's why I wrote Damn the Pusherman, because it was, for my what I do, my work.
Right. When you were working on that first book, did you face any of those fears around self-confidence, or did working with somebody maybe help you overcome some of that? Or?
That helped, and I did worry because I was writing about a real place and a real time in history. It was a small island, so a lot of the people, we all knew each other. And I knew that if people read it, and Michael, my partner, really wanted to fictionalize this story and make it very dramatic and Hollywoodish, and I was like, no, that didn't happen. So I worried about that. I worried that people would be critical, and a lot of them were, to be honest with you. Once it was out there, people were, that didn't happen, this didn't happen, that wasn't what the name was. But it didn't take long. I got enough good response too, positive feedback, that it balanced it. And because of my Wabi Sabi philosophy and my feng shui background, I knew I was kind of prepared for that, the yin and the yang, the good and the bad, the hot and the cold, that I was going to get,
It's funny, that's when I was working on the first novel that I wrote to completion, and I haven't published it. I'm still not ready to take that one into the world, but there was a lot of that. It's not a true story at this point. It started off being creative nonfiction, And then I got scared about what people would say and what people would think, particularly family. That novel is called Drinking Scotch with Strangers. So it kind of gives you a hint about my state of mind for a particular,
I want to read it.
a particular year. Yeah, the opening line to that novel is, encouraging my husband to have an affair was probably not the best idea I had.
I love it. Oh my God, I just started your book, and it's already hilarious.
Oh,
I love your voice. I love your style of writing, I have to say that.
Well, thank
fun.
you. It took me about 200,000 words to be able to be comfortable with my voice. Truly, like, it took writing and rewriting that other one. But that whole fear of what will other people think, and to overcome that, well, with the novel you're reading, Mother Teresa's Advice for Jilted Lovers, I actually had to just turn that part of my brain off, because I know it will offend people, because I'm in the story, the characters can be a little bit man-hating at times, and one of them's an atheist, so that won't appeal to certain people, including people in my own family. So
right.
Anyway, but it's all good in the so Wabi Sabi. This is what I'd love to talk to you about, because for the folks who are watching, most of them women, I'm assuming almost all women, and then at the beginning stages of trying to get that book done, and we have this fear of not being good enough. And I'm just going to read this post that you had on your Facebook page, because I think it's a lovely lead-in to Wabi Sabi, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But so this was a quote that you had put on by Mark Hack.
Right.
I'm going to read. So, and it goes, "Let someone love you just the way you are, as flawed as you might be, as unattractive as you sometimes feel, and as unaccomplished as you think you are. To believe that you must hide all the parts of you that are broken out of fear that someone else is incapable of loving what is less than perfect is to believe that sunlight is incapable of entering a broken window and illuminating a dark room." I just thought, that's beautiful. And so it seems to me as well to connect to the philosophy of Wabi Sabi. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. And Donna, we're so conditioned in our society, in our world, to be perfect, to be number one, to be a 10, to be a winner. I mean, we have such high expectations, and if we don't think we can reach those, a lot of times we'll never even try.
Right.
And that's the sad thing. It's, we know we can't get there. So we don't even try. And with Wabi Sabi, it's an aesthetic, it's a philosophy, it's an art, and it's actually about accepting or embracing imperfection, impermanence, and in things that are incomplete. So I know that's a kind of a mouthful, but what it really means is it's basically giving us permission to get rid of that word perfect. And, we are good enough as is. We are already good enough as is. And Wabi Sabi, it's rooted in Zen Buddhism. It started a long time ago with their tea ceremonies, and they would drink from chipped or cracked teacups. And if you do any reading about Wabi Sabi, the Japanese, in their art forms, they will purposely flaw a piece of art or a piece of pottery when they make it. They never, that is what gives it character.
Right.
And so Wabi Sabi, they look at everything in nature, and even us, because we are part of nature, as, we don't have just that little window of time to be perfect. Because that's how we've set it up, that we can be perfect for about this much time, if even.
Right. So
Wabi Sabi is just a really beautiful philosophy to kind of take as your own, if you can, and run with it, because it gives you permission to do things and go, and it's not saying, oh, I don't have to do that, do that job that well, or this is good enough, but if there are things that aren't perfect about your work, it's okay. Well, do you know Anne Lamott?
I do.
Did you ever read Bird by Bird?
I'm reluctant to admit I tried. I started and struggled.
Oh, okay, you did? Okay. Yeah. For me, that was like one of the first books I ever read about writing that just really filled me with so much inspiration. And I think it's because she is so imperfect and vulnerable, and she lets her audience, her readers know that. But anyway, okay, so
Yeah.
I was going to say she really comes from a Wabi Sabi kind of.
Does she? Okay, and I should try again. It's been a number of years, and I might have been too much into the place in my writing where I needed to be handheld as opposed to have stories told to me. As I recall, it was more of a story approach that Bird by Bird was taking.
Yeah, it was about her whole life,
Yeah.
and it was. It's some readers might really like that, especially if they're just trying to get that extra push, that extra little bit of go.
I know it's on my shelf right over there. So now you mentioned your blog, and I've read one piece. I actually read a couple on.
You did?
I was able to find them online, but there's one called "Finding Your Lost Picasso," an article that you wrote. Right. Tell me about that, and that's a little bit about the genesis of how you came to Wabi Sabi.
Yes. I went to school for feng shui back in the late 90s in San Francisco, and we had, after the 3 years, we had to do a thesis, and I decided to do art. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there are different life areas in feng shui, and they all are ruled by a different element or color, season, all these different types of things. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, I'm going to do a piece of art for each one. Really, it was just because I didn't know what else to do. It was like, that just sounds easy, right? So I don't know how to paint, really, or do anything. So I thought, well, I can do collage. I mean, everyone can do collage, right? So I got fabrics and papers and chopsticks and buttons and stuff. I found so many cool things. And then it really became fun because it was much more than art. It was sort of like a scavenger hunt. It was,
nice.
But anyway, so I made these pieces. I bought just canvases that were already stretched and on fabric. And then from there, I just put everything. And they were really, really, they turned out really beautiful. Matter of fact, I can show you one.
I'd love to see one.
But I got to hang them in hair salons, a couple Japanese restaurants, spas, things like that. And people actually bought them. And I was totally shocked because I knew they were sloppy. Like I knew the back where I had staple gunned the fabric, or that the glue, I was worried that, some of the glue was dripping. Things weren't centered. But as I said in that article, I remember saying that I think that's sort of what resonated with people, was that they weren't perfect by any means. It might have represented a piece of themselves in a way.
Right.
But so it gave me, when I applied the Wabi Sabi philosophy to them, it made it okay. It was almost like, yeah, I know that's not perfectly squared, or I know there's that fabric sort of faded or frayed, and it just gave me the confidence to keep going with it, and kind of spilled over into everything else that I've done. Nice. That it's good enough. If I give it my best, it's good enough.
Right. So, and for everybody listening, obviously the takeaway there is what you're writing is good enough. And yes, it might be a first draft right now, and it's a good enough first draft. It may not be good enough to publish, but it's definitely a good enough first draft. And then you'll do another draft, and that will be a good enough second draft.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, Donna, I don't know about you, but when I first started writing, I was always looking at my writing, and I was checking it as I went, and I was editing as I would go, because I wanted it to look perfect, and I wanted to be, you've always heard and been told, just write. You don't have to write well. You just have to write. And you go back later, like you said, you do a second draft and third. And I think if you can just write and not try and focus on what you're writing, and if it looks right, or if you use the wrong word there, and go for it, and then you go back. And like you said, it's good enough at certain points. Mm-hmm. And Wabi Sabi doesn't say you can put out garbage.
Right.
Yeah. Good. So,
but have you got one of your art pieces right there with you, beside you, or is it something up?
Well, it's on my wall, so I'm going to just go like this to you. I'm going to take you over here because I'm Skyping you, right?
Yeah.
So I think you might be able to see the 3 that are hanging.
Those are.
Wait.
Okay, you have to tilt up just a little. Wow.
Can you see them?
Yes. Tilt up just a little bit more. My God, that's beautiful. No, they're gorgeous.
Okay.
So those are 3-dimensional?
Fabric and yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Spectacular. Okay.
Thank you.
Wow.
But I'm going to plug you back in on my
Okay.
computer so that. One other thing that to read to people that are listening that are still a little bit worried about what people say, and they will, and like you were saying, family and friends are probably the worst. And I had to be really careful because at first I was having family read my chapters, like, what do you think? And a lot of times they didn't even take me seriously as a writer. It was like, oh, you think you can write a book? Because do you remember the old Joni Mitchell song, For Free?
No.
Oh, well, it was about, this really great, I think he was a sax player on the street corner and everybody just walked past him, but he actually was, he could have been on stage, but he wasn't. And that's another thing. We only recognize a lot of creatives, a lot of artists once they're published or once they're on a TV show, or playing, on, a movie or television.
It's almost like if I tell my son something that is smart,
yeah,
he won't hear it as smart. But if he sees it from a guy on YouTube who he respects, he'll come up and he'll go, "Mom, you never, you wouldn't guess." Like, no,
exactly.
You never would have.
I know, isn't that funny?
I know.
So, yeah, I quit sharing my stuff with people that weren't like-minded, and I think it's really important to have writer friends or groups like you have. Your Write Women Write is so important to be connected to that, that network of women.
And that was exactly what moved me past that fear. I joined the local chapter of the Romance Writers of America.
Oh.
And so we have about 30 women come out every single month to a meeting. And then we've got the loop, it's called, and we just online are supporting each other daily. Someone has a question, someone has they need to be cheered on, or they've got an accomplishment, and we have something called Add a Girl. And so, it's kind of like Add a Boy, but it's Add a Girl. And it's nice. So important because even, kind of like how your family might not take you seriously as a writer, I actually didn't take my family's opinions about my writing seriously because what do they know, right?
Yeah.
But to get that Add a Girl from someone who's been there or is on the same path as me has so much more meaning.
Right. Right. Donna, I was dusting, and I found this on my bookshelf.
Oh, you know what? I found that online, and that author is from British Columbia, where I am.
Is he?
Yeah.
Yes, that he is. I see that.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a simple little book, but it's a really nice little reference guide for anybody who is find inspiration, respect imperfection,
nice,
and create peerless beauty. So I thought it was pretty nice.
Good. Okay. Well,
but
I will put that in the references as well.
I think what I was going to say was the only thing when I started to talk about family was in feng shui. Everyone's familiar with the Tai Chi, the yin yang symbol, the white, the black. And one of my teachers, Edgar Sung, who he's probably around 70, and he's just a master. And he was explaining to us that they're, the polar opposites, that they have to exist in everything. So, you can't have cold without hot, right. You can't have tight without loose, you can't have anything like that. Well, you also can't have people that really like what you do without the people that don't like what you do.
Interesting.
So if you're afraid of rejection, you're going to get rejection. But you just need to focus on this other symbol, the other part of the symbol, that, love what you do, because there will always be people that don't like your art, don't like your writing, don't like your hair color, don't like whatever. So it's really us getting past that and speaking to the people that want to hear us, and they're all out there.
They are, yeah. I think. Fabulous.
Yeah.
I want to thank you again. One thing that I didn't say at the beginning is this is the second time I've spoken to Kim, because the first time I didn't understand the software I was using. So we didn't record a whole interview. And Kim was gracious enough to come back and talk to me.
We just wanted to talk again.
I love talking to you. Oh. I do. I want to do a road trip down the West Coast and come and see you.
Please do.
It'd be fabulous. All right.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate that. And
thank you very much. It was lovely to talk to you.
And you too, Donna. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.